Hi everyone, this is Holly from Hot Humble Pie. Today's video is an extra special compilation video for the year 2020. I put together your favorite farmhouse DIYs. That means every time I uploaded a video, I paid attention to which ones ranked number one for that video, and those are the DIYs that made the final cut for today. And as always, I hope you enjoy the show. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you click that button. Just use more of that super thick sign wood and the $1.18 Home Depot furring strip, and I laughed so hard at this next scene. So I watched that scene of my husband sawing away like a madman probably about 6 times, and I was laughing so hard I was tearing, because I am sure when I started my YouTube channel, he did not expect that he would ever be in a video sawing some legs on a little farmhouse chair. And then I started laughing because it occurred to me how many videos I've watched where I see husbands also, we DIY girls, we suck those husbands into it somehow eventually, and they come to the rescue when the job gets a little tougher than we can do. So bless their hearts. I think it's so cute and so funny. Very grateful, and it's just one of those things in life that it's so sweet that it makes me smile. So just using my wood glue and hot glue to tack this little chair together. I'm gluing it on the back of the chair, so here's where I messed up. So if you guys make this chair, and I recommend that you do because it's so cute, leave that back piece that you see right there where I have to glue it together. I should have left that in one piece, but I was thinking, oh, a chair has 4 legs, so I cut 4 legs, but duh, that was a boo-boo. So first glue the back strip on and then measure what you need for the front leg, because I end up having to reinforce the back with a craft stick, which is no big deal because no one's going to see the back because I have it down at the bottom of my ladder. And mistake number 2. I glue it with the holes in the front. There's no holes on the other side, and I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't notice that. But once you get that wood glue down with the hot glue, it will be more problematic to try and move it, and I knew that. So I decided, go ahead and fill it with spackling, sand it down. You won't notice it when it's stained, and you don't. And it ended up being an easier route. And here, I wait 24 hours for everything to dry because this front piece is a very tight fit and it does put counter pressure on the 2 front legs. I bought this stain through Amazon because it was a non-odor water-based acrylic stain, and I thought it would have a little bit of that glide factor, but nope. It's equivalent to watered down acrylic paint. I add a little bit of black to it. It's also black walnut, not the black walnut that we think of with Minwax. It's a little more reddish. I love the color it comes out to be when I mix it with the black paint, but I do end up having to apply it with a baby wipe to get the glide factor. But if you're interested, I do leave it in a link down below in my description box, because a lot of people on Amazon do give it a 5-star review, so you might want to go check it out. But this craft, without a doubt, hands down, is the cutest craft I have ever made. It actually brings me joy when I look at it. I feel joy. It is so cute. So I found this glass plate, and it's one of those glass plates that looks like it's plastic trying to look like glass or crystal. So I saw it, I really liked the shape of it. The shape was very charming, and I decided to give it a coat of my DIY chalk paint. I do have to give it 2 coats because it's glass, but this is actually the plate where it's the very first time I paint in a big way that I paint it glass. I do a small little vase with the actual video, but this is where I really get to test it out on super slick, shiny glass, and I discover the staying power, the way it adheres, beats the brand name chalk paint. And the one thing I really like about my DIY chalk paint is it comes up snow white. I mean, you can tint it any color you want because it's solid, you know, you can make it whatever you want. But I love that. So I'm using the carbon paper again, and this time I do print up my words because I don't want to deal with all those flowers, the vines at the bottom. That's too much even for me to do on a computer screen. I would have a serious neck ache. So I just tape it on the top and push my carbon paper underneath and trace away. On this plate, I'm using a combination of colored pencils, the black Sharpie pen, and paint. Now I choose colored pencils. I've got the really expensive kind that are almost oily, so when I do it correctly, they literally look like an ink stamp. And I explained earlier in the vid why I like ink so much. That is just great for farmhouse. That's actually great for any vintage look. So I don't know why crafters don't talk a lot about colored pencils. I'm a big fan. I think they're underrated because I think that, well, you have to buy the expensive ones, but if you get the expensive ones, they are just a great option along with all the other, you know, paint markers, paint pens, chalk pens. They're another great option for you if you're doing any kind of vintage craft work. Now here I should probably mention, you see me going back and forth with a marker pen. I'm actually having to dip it in paint because, as it turns out, you know, I have that fine tip Sharpie. The chalk paint, and same thing goes with the Waverly chalk paint. When I try to write on it, the chalk paint dries out the tip and plugs it up no matter what I do. If you guys have any suggestions for that, on how to prevent that, I would love you to leave a comment below. But every time I try to do it, it clogs up the tip and then the marker doesn't work anymore. And it only does that with the fine tip pen, not with the thick one. I did shake it and wet it and scrub the tip really hard with like a rough surface, and I got it to work for a little while again, but then it did it again. So it's not an option for drawing on chalk paint, that's for sure. The chalk paint is too dry and it gives off some kind of dust or sealant that makes the, you know, tip dry out, and you can't, you know, the ink doesn't come through it anymore. So just a word of warning. I decide that I'd like this plate to have the natural wear and tear look of enamelware with the little chips and the worn down edges, so that's what I'm doing right here. And here I'm just using my finger to soften it up so it looks like a legitimate scrape. And here the final results are, and I'm really pleased with this one too. I've got it in my farmhouse hutch in my living room, front and center. Looks really, really beautiful. Very, very happy with it. Need a heart shape. I obviously used a Dollar Tree one, but you can make one of your own. And then you're going to cut out some poster board in a heart shape, and you're going to need a Dollar Tree mop as well. And I'm just cutting that mop and gluing it, as you see, directly down on the heart shape. And I did draw with a ruler across there with a line, as you guys noticed, because you're only going to glue it down to that line. And then you're going to need to tape it in place so it doesn't move. So I'm just going to go ahead and tape it in place because we're going to be trimming it after we flip it over about 1 inch below the poster board heart. So you have like a little fringe there. And now you're going to see why I drew that line. You're going to bend it at that line in the back, and you're going to be cutting off the bottom part because we don't need that. We want the bottom part to be hanging and free flowing. And I use skewer sticks and craft sticks to give that part more stability. You can use whatever you want on the back there. And I'm going to use some white chalk paint, which is actually just the cheapest white chalk paint I could find at Walmart. This is around the time where I decide I have to figure out how to make chalk paint because I am not paying for Waverly. It's too expensive, not at the rate that I use it. It makes crafting not fun for me because it becomes too expensive, and I'm not happy with the cheap one. So here I'm using Apple Barrel Territorial Beige. I'm going for an ombre effect with this. I saw something on Pinterest that inspired me in pink colors, and I'm just making this a neutral color. Well, I'm doing it totally different. That was on paper, but I'm doing this with the mop thread, and I'm taking the color a little bit below the back poster board. And the next color is Khaki from Apple Barrel. These are all Apple Barrel paints, and I'm just going in the design of the V shape here. I'm going to show you in a minute. I'll turn it around and show you kind of how I'm doing that. There I go. And the very last color I'm going to use is the Antique Parchment, believe it or not, and I'm going to tip all of the tips in the Antique Parchment. And there's the final thing. I really like the way the Territorial Beige got darker there too at the seam of the poster board, and I just think that looks so cool and rustic. And I didn't show it, but I paint my beads with a third coat of Apple Barrel paint in the color Antique Parchment. I don't want them to be bright white. We're gonna use a needle, some twine. This is jute twine from the Dollar Tree as well. And I tie a nice little bead of, you can see what I'm doing. I tie a nice little strand of beads at the top there, and I'm just gluing them on the back. And then I'm using little beads. These are the smaller ones from the Dollar Tree, and I decide those would look really pretty at the end. Now here's a trick, and you guys can see it here. When you put the beads on, at first I glued them on, they look so fake. They look like they were just glued on and the yarn was hanging over the edge because it was thicker than the bead. If you put it on and you spin it as the hot glue is drying, you press and you spin. You can see me doing it. Press and spin as the hot glue is drying. It makes it look like the yarn goes through the hole of the bead, like it's actually threaded on the mop yarn. So that's the trick I figured out. And of course I glue 2 beads together in some places, 3 beads together in some places. I just kind of do a variety so we get lots of dimension and texture, and you know, it comes out really pretty, but you can do it however you want to do it. There was no rhyme or reason to this. I wasn't counting. I was just kind of doing it all by eye and placing them wherever I thought it looked nice to keep the piece looking balanced. decide the top is a little bit more rough looking than I want, so I edge it with some of the solid mop thread as well. I make a couple tassels because I think that looks so cute. This is kind of boho farmhouse for sure. But there's the final thing, you guys. There it is, and that's how I made it. Here's what you're going to end up with when you're all done, and that's actually crafted from an Amazon box, believe it or not. So you're going to need an Amazon box or any cardboard box, a very sharp knife, and you're going to be cutting that box into 3 pieces. Then you glue those 3 pieces together. Now they don't have to be a solid 3 pieces. You can see there that I'm going to glue a piece in, which means you could do a whole puzzle piece on the middle and the back, but for the front side I recommend that you use 1 solid piece. You're going to need some joint compound for this craft. And you'll be spreading it on the front of your board nice and thin, just like you spread on frosting. This is 2.5 tablespoons. You're going to use between 3 to 5 tablespoons. I used 5 tablespoons. Now you are going to put some on the back, but that can be extremely thin where you're even seeing the cardboard through it. The purpose of it being on the back is so that the board doesn't curl. But allow your front side to dry for a full 24 hours before you do that. You can try after 6 to 8 hours if you feel like you're not going to damage the front, but you can go as long as 24 hours. It's just fine. And then allow the back side to dry at least 6 hours before you apply spackling on the side edges. I recommend spackling because it's thicker and it does a better job at covering the layers of cardboard, and it also cracks and kind of has lumps and bumps and adds to that whole illusion of it being distressed old wood. After it's dry for 24 hours, you're going to do a light sanding and just sand down any areas that you feel are too high, or it's really totally up to you. It's your personal preference. This is your baby, but it should look kind of like that when you're done. Now you can use any paint color you want. I'm just telling you the mix that I used, and I'm dry brushing this on. You're going to need to start with a clean baby wipe, and any brand baby wipe will work. These baby wipes are from the Dollar Tree. But the wipes need to be clean because they need those skin conditioners and all those moisturizers in there. That's what gives it that glide factor and helps it stain. Now, some of you who watched my previous video saw me do this with foam board, but the surface is dry and it dries very quickly. This surface on the joint compound is very slippery, and so if you use a new baby wipe, you can actually almost remove the stain, and what ends up happening is you get all these light and dark hues that imitate the way real wood takes stain and adds to the whole illusion of real wood. You are going to use about 5 to 6 baby wipes. And any areas where you see little holes, just press down gently. Wet your wipe if you have to with a bit of water to get the paint down there, but just work with it and press down gently until you get every little area stained. Watch what happens when I get a new wipe. See? It removes the paint, and that's what gives you so much leverage and control with this craft. I even was able to do that on the other end of the board that I had painted about 10 minutes earlier. I could lighten it up, I could remove the paint. It gives you a lot of time to step back and look at your craft and decide where you'd like to add or take away different looks so that you can create a very realistic looking grain. And there it is, so pretty. Now for the side, dip your brush in water and then dip it in the paint and then paint the sides, because you're going to need it to let it, there's some deep crevices there. You can just paint with just paint, but it will use a lot more paint and waste the paint. And then after you're done, just wipe it down. Amazon wants $21.99 for this. Now with tax, it's going to be more like $24, maybe close to $25. Now for those of you that watch my channel, you know that I've got lots of free wood, but I am trying to make this user-friendly, so I'm using foam board. I am using some of the free wood at the bottom because I want some weight to hold it so that it doesn't tip over when I put the silk flowers in. If you don't have free wood, a trick I used to do all the time when I didn't have any free wood was I just would glue about 3 pieces of cardboard together at the bottom to save my foam board, because foam boards still cost money. And then I would just take a nice little nature walk outside and collect rocks. They're free, they're easy to get, hopefully, unless you live in the city, but usually somewhere, even if you're in the city, there's somewhere, even a park, that has some rocks. And failing that, if you don't have rocks, you can always throw like a bag of pinto beans, that kind of thing, not the whole bag, but I used to take the pinto beans, mix it with some school glue, and just dump a little bit in there and press it down, let it dry overnight. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can add weight to the bottom, but you just don't want it to tip over. So here I am, I'm just gluing the foam board down, so we have our nice little planter box. These are the 3 colors I'm using. Now, I don't even bother zooming in at this point, you guys, because, we got blurry, worry. So you don't have to use the exact same colors. I was using, I believe it was burnt umber for sure, antique parchment, they're all apple barrel paints, and I believe the other one was chocolate sprinkle. Now, here's the fun technique I wanted to show you with baby wipes, and it works even on foam board, which is surprising, but there you go. I paint the paint, even the paint on the other side, which I painted first, it still works. If you press really hard, you got that glide factor with the baby wipe, and you get this beautiful stain browning type result. It's the substances they put in the baby wipe. I think the skin conditioners and all the different moisturizers, they make a great glide factor. So I'm painting the edge of foam board, very important, or it will look beyond stupid. And here you can see the center of this is kind of light, and then it's got like blotted dots around the side. And to be honest with you, I'm going to be honest here, this is a look for less, so I'm going for the look, but I didn't care for the way it looked, almost like a cookie cutter cloned stamped type box just kind of thrown out there. My house is rustic and farmhouse. That's what I'm transferring it into. I'm actually in the process of moving it into that look because I love that. So I want my box to look a lot more farmhouse, a lot more rustic, and a lot more old, almost like repurposed wood. So although I'm going for the look, I'm still making it my own. I'm using a makeup sponge to dot the burnt umber and the antique parchment, and just a baby wipe to kind of blur that out. I'm painting the edges, and I do use a little spackling to close all of the little edges as well, because one edge had you could see through it, and that looks stupid. And there's my final result. Really pretty. And of course I'm using my favorite method, carbon paper, and I did print that out. Oh wait, no I didn't. I stand corrected. I held that up to my computer screen and I traced it. Now again, it's going to be a printable in the description box. I did my best finding the kind of font that was close to the one from, Amazon, so it might be a little bit different, but I think it's close enough. And in the end, I like my box better. And here I'm adding nightmare foam. Now I'm saying nightmare foam, you guys, because I said, don't throw away your foam when it comes. This is that kind of foam when you cut it, it turns into a million little balls, and it was stuck all over me, and I totally regret it. It wasn't worth it. I threw the rest away, but for this craft I'm using it because I went through the trouble and I got all messy, so I figured just on principle. But there it is. And last but not least, one of my favorite things to do to make things look real, and I've been doing this since the 1990s, that's a little carpet tack, and I just put a little bit of glue on it and I push it in all four corners on both sides. Now y'all probably recognize this. This is a coffee can, and of course I picked the most gigantic one I could find because I wanted to have difficulty under the camera filming it. I'm using pewter gray, granite gray, and black, 3 colors, and I'm doing an aged metal, to be clear. I'm not doing galvanized. That's a different technique, and you're going to see me doing a different technique than you would do if you wanted to galvanize it. And the first thing I'm going to do is put the pewter gray on, because you got to knock down that shine to even begin to look like you're, an old piece of metal. I will also say you don't have to pick a large coffee can like I did. You can choose any can. I mean, this is definitely a one size fits all. Any can, you can duplicate this process, this craft, everything. You can make it miniature all the way up to the biggest can you can find in the world. It all works. And there you'll need the pattern for the spout, and I'm showing you what the pattern looks like more or less. Make sure you measure it up against your coffee can so it fits nice and snug as possible. I'm using Brilliant Aluminum by Krylon. Now, I do want to recommend, this is a blotting technique, and this has been around forever. I did a set of countertops years ago using this technique. But if you want to do aged metal or galvanized metal, just like wood, you got to start with black poster board. I recommend that you do. Again, black gives some kind of depth and richness that just adds more authenticity to the final results. Now, I thought, I'll miss this one with a bit of white and I'll get some white in there. It was a waste of paint. Save your paint, because I did a test run on just plain black. It looked identical, so waste of time. But this is a great technique for aged metal. Now, if you want galvanized metal, you need to go one step further and draw those little amoebas on it, but great technique for aged metal. There it is. It looks excellent. So what you're going to do here is find something stiff. This is a really thick, stiff paper towel roll, the center. You can use anything round, and you're going to gradually curl your poster board, because if you go too fast, you're going to get creases, and that's going to give it away that your craft piece is fake. So you can see me now gradually going down smaller, and the reason you can't use small real quick again is because you'll get a crease. So you start with a bigger roll, then a smaller roll, until finally you can glue it to where you want it to be without any creases. And I just hot glued mine. That worked fine. And if you plan on trying any of these crafts, please let me know in the comments, or if you have any suggestions. I always love hearing from you guys. And on the bottom where it's going to meet the can, you're going to need to bend it just a little bit. Don't worry if it tears, because you're not going to see it, but you need to ease it up a little bit so it can lay flush and flat with your can. So now I'm making the handle. I roll it first and then I press it down to make it flat, but I do double up on the poster board, because if you do just one layer poster board, it's going to look too thin and look fake. And I'm doing the same process where I'm just slowly creasing it, slowly rolling it, so that we don't get any creases or any wrinkles. Perfect. And now I'm just doing the exact same process as I did with the can, because it has to match, of course. I'm going to do it to the spout and to the handle. So you're going to see me do about 4 to 5 different layers of paints with the pewter gray, black, then the light gray, then the pewter gray again, and they're never completely drying in between. They're all kind of blending in. You know, I used to do makeup. I mentioned that in one of my videos. I used to make makeup, and that helps out a lot when you're doing crafts. I also do hair, and just sharing a little knowledge we know about hair, most of you probably already know, but when you see someone with brown hair, it's never just brown. That the hair is made up of so many different colors in there that give you the final color brown. So, you know, hair's never one dimension. It's always many dimensions, which is why if you just get an artificial color of brown and slap it on your hair, or if you've seen someone do that, it looks really flat, it has no shine and no sparkle, and it's not giving off any other colors. It's because it doesn't have any other colors in there. So it's really important, you know, when you dye your hair, that you use, you know, I guess the best method really is to have different colors woven in so that it looks like a natural brown. But anyway, nature in general tends to be multidimensional, and it's the same thing with metal. If you guys just do 1 or 2 layers of paint, trust me, you're going to be unhappy. It's not going to look real, and everyone's going to know it's fake, and you're going to wonder what you did wrong. So it's a lot of work, but it's fun. Crafting is fun, it's relaxing. And if you do all of the different layers, you're going to get a very believable, very authentic result. And the final trick to doing faux metal or faux aged metal is you always have to add an iridescent silver on top. And it doesn't matter what color iridescent or pearlescent or whatever. And you use paper towels. That works great. Don't do a sponge because you'll end up with air bubbles and little square marks, and again you'll be unhappy. So stick with a crumpled up paper towel, crumpled up Kleenex. Kleenex leaves hair behind. Use a paper towel, you'll be happy. And just add that iridescence all over where you painted, and you're heading in the right direction. It's gonna look good. And as I mentioned in previous videos, big fan of the carbon paper because it's ink, and back in the day they were using mostly ink, some paint, but I think I read somewhere it was mostly ink. So I'm a big fan of carbon paper and the ink look. And also, you guys, I always, whenever I can, just put the paper up to the computer screen and trace out the words, because invariably, no matter how careful you trace out your words, even when you print them up, you're going to need to make corrections when you finally lift up that paper. So it's a waste of ink for me anyway. That's my opinion. You guys want to print it out, you can, but I always end up having to make corrections anyway, so I just save the ink. My kitty's in here with me. If you can hear him right now, he's talking. But I just save the ink and trace it right off the computer screen, and it works great. I'm using E6000 and it works this time. Now I am going to say the fumes from E6000 are toxic. I've got a ventilator mask on, and it's not toxic once it dries unless you plan on eating it. But if you don't have a mask, please make sure you're sitting with plenty of ventilation, or use a glue with less fumes like super glue. And of course, make sure you are generous with the hot glue, and don't worry if it shows, because you're not going to see it. Now, I've got a water can out in my garage. It's not cute like this at all. I mean, it's actually like a modern day regular old water can, and it's rusted and old, and so I use that as a template or guideline for what this should look like if I'm trying to get it to look real, and I've decided to go ahead, because I want it to look old, and corrode it. So here I am, I'm trying to figure out how to cover the seam or how to add some more realism, and I try like a wire like this, and I absolutely not. So I end up thinking, aha, spackling, and that works like a charm. Oh my gosh, it was pretty much dried up and old, and I made it work. I added water. It worked great. I go ahead and I fill in all the seams where the spout is, where the handle is, everywhere there is a seam, even up on the spout area where I glued the poster board together and there's a seam. I put some spackling in there. Works great. Now you could use caulking, I'm sure. You could use silicone, nail filler, any kind of filler you have at home. And you guys, I'm entertaining the idea maybe that toothpaste, if you have that old-fashioned toothpaste, it's white, that might even work in a pinch, but I would do a test run first, and I think it would probably take like 2 or 3 days to dry thoroughly, but I think that might even work. So, I'm just giving you different suggestions because we're not really supposed to be going shopping anywhere right now, but, I tried glue. Glue didn't quite give the realism. And I will say one thing, the spackling added so much strength that I actually forgot this thing was fake at one point when I was taking pictures of it, and I picked it up from the handle and it didn't break or anything. It just picked up, but it was amazing. So if you want extra durability, go for the spackling. And I just remembered as I'm watching this video, I did not use E6000 for the handle, which is even more remarkable that I could pick it up and it didn't break off. That says a lot for the spackling, because I'm pretty sure without that spackling that handle would have come off. But apparently I have to tell you now that, hot glue for the handle is enough. Because I remember at the time thinking, this is for decorative purposes only, I won't be carrying it around. And then I went and I picked it up. So, yep, there I go with the spackling. Like I said, if you have something like that, I'm positive caulking would work. In fact, I have that too. So I thought, well, if the spackling doesn't, soften up with water, I'm just going to use caulking. It would have worked the same. And of course, I'm painting it with the pewter gray to get it to match. And I'm just going to go through the process now of aging it and getting it to match. And here's where we are right now. So I'm adding the iridescent silver. And I choose chocolate sprinkle for this because, believe it or not, that actually looked more like rust than the burnt umber this time. And I just used a little Q-tip. And everywhere where the metal would have been fused together, just like my water can outside, I rusted it. And I start my process of making everything look corroded and old and rusted and used. I thought I was so smart using those little pearl buttons for fake nails, but I've actually seen a couple YouTubers doing this, so it's not, it's not an original idea. A lot of people can see the use for those. They're great for that. With foam board, I use carpet tacks. That's great because you can puncture foam board, but with other surfaces where you can't and you need it to have like a little nail in, these are great. And you can paint them whatever color you want them to be. And I'm just showing you I did all 4. Look at that. It looks so awesome. You know what? I had a certain expectation for this craft, and I can honestly say it surpassed my expectations. So I was getting really excited because I'll tell you, up close and personal, you cannot tell this baby's not real. And I should mention here, the very last and final detail was to do thin little ribbons of black everywhere at the deepest part of where the connection of real metal would be to add to the corrosion look. going to need a sharp utility knife to cut some aluminum cans. Cut the top off first, and then down the side, and then the bottom. Keep the bottom and cut it like I'm showing you here. You will need 6 cans altogether for this craft. Go ahead and make yourself some templates for petals. You'll need 3, 1 large, medium, and small. And then you're going to cut out 3 cardboard circles. I do recommend you wear gloves for this craft as well. I didn't at first, but I gave in. I didn't cut myself, but it just felt like I might, so I took precaution, and I suggest you guys do too. So you're going to glue petals then in between each one of those spaces like I'm showing you here on the video. You'll start with your 6 big petals at the bottom, and then you'll do 6 more petals in between the gaps, and then you'll do the small petals the same way in between each of the creases of the medium petals. I hope you're staying with me here. Go ahead and glue the middle down. Now I used hot glue, but I did end up tearing the middle off and adding E6000 and hot glue just to make it really, really durable. I think you guys should too, because there is some pressure with the curling. It's like it wants to pop back up, so you do need some stronger adhesive. I painted 1 green, pink, and purple. I actually like the way the purple one came out. It was kind of streaky like a glaze, but I didn't worry about any imperfections. You guys don't worry about it, because these are going to be galvanized and you won't notice any of that by the time we galvanize it. So I'm going ahead here and I'm adding some dimension with purple. Just adding different colors like you would see in nature, where the flowers have shadows and darker and lighter colors. And that's what we have when we're all done. And then you take yellow and you're going to sponge it on purpose so that it's textured and it looks all marshmallowy and squishy like a real flower would. You know, you don't want it to be flat, you want it to have texture. And I'm using burnt umber there just to add some more shadow and dimension so it looks like a real center, well, hopefully kind of like a real center of a flower. And here I'm using pewter gray. Now this is a nice trick I love. When I want to do any kind of mini galvanizing, I love using blush brushes. This blush brush was only $1 at the 99-cent only store, and I think it does great little mini galvanizing dots, so you guys might want to try that out. And here's one of those cup noodles or lunch, whatever, those unhealthy things that are full of sodium, and I thought they would make great plant pots. So I cut them in half and I paint them with 1 coat of black paint to make sure all the words are covered, and I give it 2 coats dry brushing of white paint, because I was going to do just 1 coat, but then I looked at it, it's still a little darker than I wanted. I wanted these to be a bit brighter, and so I go ahead and give it a 2nd coat of white paint. And here's something I made on my computer with labels and a farmhouse font. It is going to be now on an image online. It's a website that hosts images, so the link is below my description box. You guys can now download this and do the exact same thing if you want. You can adjust the size to whatever size you want. But I take burnt umber there and I stain it. And here's some poster board I'm going to cut out for the back of these flowers. You know, the picture, I forget what that's called. Somebody in the comments tell me what that's called. Whatever you mat this on for the picture. But I'm using burnt umber here to edge the flowers and make them look old and rustic and, you know, aged, because these are going to be galvanized summer flowers, but they're still in the farmhouse theme. And here I am dry brushing the foam board, and I'm moving so quick and my brush is so dry that the board never really gets wet from the paint, and that way I don't have to deal with any curling, because I don't want to have to paint the back of the board this time. But there's actually about 5 to 6 layers of paint on there. You just have to make sure each time you do it, it's very, very dry. And here I am measuring and scoring it with a pencil so that I get those nice lines going down. And after all that, painting my flower pots white, I end up having to make them brown. I kind of stain them a little bit because my original plan was to have a dark brown background, but I switched it to the white background. And here's 3 skewers, and I just painted a nice natural dark like stem green that you would find on the flowers during summer. But you can paint it any green that you want. And I'm using an egg carton here to cut the bottom of the egg cups off of, because these flowers need to be elevated. I realize if I push them down, it's going to flatten out all of those curls in the petals, and then I get flat flowers. I just dry brushed this frame that I was going to throw away with a bit of Territorial Beige from Apple Barrel Paint, and I darkened the leaves that I steal from those Valentine Day hearts. Those aren't really my style anymore, so I wasn't going to use those either. And I take some black paint and age the plant pots a little bit. I'm going to glue the egg cups on the top of the skewer stems, and these will help hold my flowers up. It works really well too, you guys. The petals keep their curls and the 3D effect is really pretty. You don't need to use foam board either to mat it on. It's just, I don't know if you noticed, my cat chewed the left side of that foam board, so I was going to throw it away or use it just for filler. But you can use obviously anything that's firm. And I'm just aging around the labels here because I love Farmhouse. I love the rustic look and I love aging pretty much almost everything. So I'm just Mod Podging everything on and sealing everything up and doing the finishing touches. I'm going to apply 2 thin strips of hot glue to attach the flower pots to the bottom of the base. And I'm doing the same thing with the leaves. I'm sure you can see what I'm doing, but just in case, that's my last little set of leaves right there. I decided to use some scrap burlap and cut it in strips and then just push it down where the dirt would be, and that turns out to be super cute. And I aged this little butterfly with burnt umber. He's just this random butterfly I was going to throw away because it was on like a Michael thing that I didn't like from Michael's. And here it is, you guys, a final craft, and I love this. I mean, I really love this. I don't think the camera does it justice. They remind me of that craft that you would find in a corner boutique store in a resort area that sells one-of-a-kind art pieces. It's like that when you walk in and it's just stunning. They are so pretty, they sparkle. I highly recommend you guys try this craft. You're going to need an egg carton, and you were going to need a paper towel roll, but just ignore that. I'm going to try and make a succulent. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I actually went to price those because I needed some extra ones for staging for these videos, and they are so expensive. I think 3 were like $18 if you want them in the size that I'm going to make right now. And I realized when I looked at this egg carton that it had this thick, really good, look to it that would be a great imitation for those big thick leaves that the succulents have, because you can't get that with a toilet roll. You certainly can't get it with coffee filters. It's a very unique look with the leaves. So at least some of the leaves on succulents come in different looks and shapes and sizes. Some of them are so thick, you guys, I think you probably have to use the bead recipe that I make beads with. You could probably try doing that. But for this type of succulent, these leaves turn out to be absolutely perfect. So I go ahead and I cut them out, and then I use this color. And if you watch my previous video for the Look for Less, I talk about a color that's like root beer. It's kind of like a purpley root beer color, but I knew it would be perfect on this green to imitate that reddish color that this succulent has on the edge of its leaves. And then here is that brush again that's full of Mod Podge. It dried, I could never get it out, but I love this brush for this technique because if you put white paint on and then try to get the white paint off, it's super stiff, and when you rub really hard it leaves like this cloudy thing behind. I don't know if you can see that, because real succulents have like that cloud white, like, I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, like that cloudy look over them. They're not bright green. And if you do get too much paint on this, if you try this craft, don't panic. You can see me just using my fingers to rub it in and rub it off, and it does the same cloudy look, and it comes out perfect. I mean, this is a great technique. And this jar is a minced garlic jar, you guys. Oh, it's hard to get the smell out, I admit, but here's the trick. I ended up spraying bleach in it and leaving it out in the sun, and that did the trick. It just smelled like glass after that. So I just thought it was such a cute shape for a little mini plant pot. I've been saving that jar for a while. And here I am using the bottom of the egg cup again. I'm going to call it an egg cup because I don't know what it's called, but there's the formation that you're going to need to have at the end. So if you need to pause the video so you can kind of check that out, it'll show you how many you need, approximately the sizes, you know, the cascading sizes. And you're going to start by gluing your first set of leaves on the inside of the cup. You can see what I'm doing there. You're going to use 6 of them, and you're going to start on the inside. Now you will end up doing the outside at the very end, but to begin with, you do the inside. And these leaves also curl really easy. The only thing you have to be careful of when you curl them around your big finger, like not anything thin like a pencil, because you'll crack the paint. You know, in some places I noticed the paint cracked, and I just flipped it over and used the other side and then repainted it. But they do curl, and then they hold their shape, which was really surprising too. So I was really pleased with them. Actually, these, I never thought of egg cartons, but they make really excellent little petals, and they look, because they're kind of thick and juicy looking, they make it look alive, and just, it was, anyway, you'll see. And just like with the aluminum can petals that we made, you want to glue those petals in between the other petals each time. So now you'll see that I start putting the ones on the outside edge, the very bottom where I talked about, you know, in the beginning. I was going to save that till the end. Maybe you guys can do it differently, but for me, I just found that I was able to get a better feel for where they're supposed to be so that it looks like an identical imitation if I saved this step to last. And I'm just taking some jute twine here from Walmart and wrapping this up to cover it. You know, I don't want people to know it's a jar. That's a nice top for it. And I like this. It's a little thicker. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is a great deal. You get like 100 feet for a little over $4 from Walmart. And I like the thin jute twine at the Dollar Tree too, but this is good for different reasons. And then I use a flame to get rid of the strings, and there he is. And oh my gosh, you guys, I have a high definition camera. So if I was to film your face, you'd be able to count every single one of your pores, but you cannot see any of the egg carton texture. These leaves look juicy and thick and real. You can make these in every single different color, those purples and all the beautiful, you'd save a fortune. I absolutely love this craft. So today we're doing this super cute windmill from Wayfair for $46.99. I got my windmill at the Dollar Tree. Now I have watched quite a few YouTubers craft with the windmill from the Dollar Tree. They bring it out every year around spring with the summer decor, so if you don't get it this year, you should be able to eventually find it. But I've watched all these crafters, these cute gals, tell me, you just bend the welcome sign back and forth, and it snaps off really easy, and that way you can save the welcome sign for another DIY. So this is what I'm doing. I'm just bending it. Well, I filmed this to show you guys how easy it is to get the welcome sign off. So this could have been part of a sitcom. But anyway, I won't be using that welcome sign for any DIYs, but I got it off, and hey, at least the windmill works. And I tell you, all you lovely people, if you had been in the room with me while I was filming, you would have just heard me laughing hysterically. I'll tell you, the struggle was real. Anyway, I'm taking chocolate sprinkle from Apple Barrel paint here, black and white, and I'm going to start painting the bottom wood piece to make it a match, or as close to. Now, I got my windmill about 3 months ago, but don't fret if you don't have a windmill, because there are tons of YouTube videos to show you how to make them out of poster board, and they look great. So first I'm going to start with black. For those of you that watch my videos, you know I love black as an undertone. It just really kicks it off when you're doing any kind of distressed old wood, or if you're trying to make something fake look like wood. at least 99.9% of the time, and that's my opinion. I have seen people pull it off using white, but it just seems like they do a lot more paint and a lot more work to get it there, but they can do it too. So there it is, and most of the white's on the left-hand side, the dry brushing, so I'm going to try and get the white mostly on the left-hand side as well. Now, although I think the Dollar Tree windmill is actually very lovely as it comes, I was seriously impressed when I saw these. I thought, really? Oh my gosh, they are really upping their game. But the windmill I'm trying to copy is galvanized, and it has, I don't know if you guys noticed, but it has very distinct edges with straight lines. So this is sped up about 8 times, but I am going super slow because I want those lines to be perfectly straight. Now I have to make this little guy match as best I can to the Wayfair one, so I'm using this color iridescent. Normally I don't think it matters, but especially with the iridescent paints, when you paint a shiny surface like this, like metal, it runs all over the place. So I've got another trick for you guys. You blow dry it. You blow dry it. It takes seconds to do. I know a lot of people will talk about Mod Podge, and that is a good trick to get stuff to stick, but Mod Podge has its own problems. Sometimes it rivets on shiny surfaces as well and leaves little streaks, so you risk getting a bumpy surface on an otherwise smooth surface. So I still favor the blow dryer, and it's cheaper. And once you get your first coat down, you can put subsequent coats on, no problem. I'm doing 3 coats. Oh, that's my cat again. I'm so sorry. I think this is going to be part of the program, you guys. Occasionally you're going to hear my cat talking in the background and meowing. If I put him outside the room, he meows really loud. You can still hear him. If I let him in the room with me, he meows. I think he's stressed because I'm talking to myself lately and he doesn't understand because I've been making videos, so he's talking back. But sorry about that. Anyway, he's super cute. Here I'm galvanizing. Now the first thing I do is I do those little amoeba shapes, but now the original one from Wayfair really blends that out so you hardly see it, so that's what I'm doing. There it is. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do too. The amoeba shapes are there, but they're super soft and they're super muted, so that's what I'm going to be doing too. And I should probably explain what I did. I just covered it with more iridescent, and then at some point I use a wet baby wipe and I kind of move to blend the iridescent and smear the gray before it totally dries. I was using pewter gray by Apple Barrel, by the way, before it totally dries, to kind of make it all blend together in a cloudy look more, and it works like a charm. So here I am taking off the paint, and I have to add those little stripes. Those are on the end. I don't know if you noticed that too on the original windmill. It's striped. The reason I zoom in here is I wanted to show you how simple it is to fix this if you make a mistake. If the line's too thick, you can literally, if you see, I just take my finger and wipe off the edge and it becomes a thin line. So if you guys do get your hands on these windmills from the Dollar Tree, and like I said, I'm pretty sure you eventually will because they come out every year because they're a really big hit. If you do want to change it up a little bit, it's not hard to do. You can make corrections really, really easy. I also go back in and add some black because in some areas from the previous design they have silver showing and there's not enough contrast. And here I'm using hot glue to put it down on the wood. Now look what I found in my arsenal, you guys. I was cleaning out my craft supplies and I found the super glue gel. I was so happy. So I've got ladders coming out of my ears, you guys. I made this one for under $5 from Home Depot wood, and this one was free off my bunk bed from my kids, and great for hanging stuff on. But I saw this one online, and it's got a whole different look, totally rustic, and I've always wanted one where the rungs are like crooked, like a total farmhouse ladder outdoors, and I'm gonna make it with that free wood. Here we go. Now, if you missed how to get free wood, it's in my first video. This is called dunnage blocks. This is what they lift that plywood with, and you pretty much, when you go to get free wood, you get mostly these, and you get plywood. So it's great for making things, and we're gonna make tons of crafts. I've got so many ideas, so call them up and see, because they throw that stuff away. You might have better luck at the private lumber guys, lumber yards, privately owned, because I don't think they have as big of an operation in place to get rid of their wood. So more often than not, at least where I live, they throw it away. But definitely call around, see if someone will leave that outside for you to go pick up. So here I am. I'm going to use wood glue first, and then my trusty Ryobi gun. It's all Ryobi stuff, you guys. I bought a whole package: a circular saw, the gun, and a drill, and the sander. It was a great deal. It's been life-changing for me. If you craft a lot, try and do it, you guys. Save your money, or ask everyone to chip in for Christmas gifts or just a birthday gift, but it's really life-changing if you craft a lot. So I purposely made the rungs crooked there. I want this ladder like something you would see at Knott's Berry Farm. I mean, I want a farmhouse ladder, and I'm using my favorite color, black, to dirty it up and make it look soiled. And you see me there, I've got a scrap piece of wood. Really smart, you guys. You put paint on that, and you don't really ever need to dip your brush in paint again. If you're just dry brushing, it kind of controls the dry brushing so that you don't have any blots or big, you can make a mistake and it ruins the whole effect. And I'm wearing protective goggles there. I don't wear glasses, but I have learned the hard way, you guys. I have had so much stuff fly in my eye, from paint to sawdust. So when you craft, if you're doing heavy crafting like this, please protect your eyes. So here's my online inspiration, that herb sign. I absolutely love the look, everything. It's that ink look again that I was telling you guys about in previous videos. And here's my free plywood. Now the thing about free plywood, they give it to you because it's really, really cracked, dry, bent, or it's got too many knots in it. Either way, it's not sellable. That's why they give it to you. So, but it's perfect for crafting. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what we're after when we are doing farmhouse decor, because we go to a lot of work to make our wood look distressed, but if it already is distressed, it's all good. And yes, I cut my stool, you guys. That was actually one of the stools in my kitchen I was going to refinish. Very disappointing, but I'm going to have to thrift it when I can and just look, you always find stools in thrift stores. But at least it wasn't my finger. So here I am, I'm sanding it, and with these plywood, the free plywood that I get from, mine all came from Home Depot. One piece came from Lowe's. I just concentrate on the edges because that's where I tend to get splinters. And then I'm just using a nice light gray here that has a little bit of blue in it. It's an apple barrel paint. I can't remember the color of it, but it's not really important because you can use any light gray you want. You can even use white. In fact, I think the inspiration picture, they use white, and then they just dry brush a black, really dry brush. Like the brush is pretty much dry. They just go over it with black, and that's how they get their color. But I'm going with gray because I think that'll be pretty. Again, I'm kind of after colors, either of the sky or of the trees or just the earth, because it's summertime and those colors make me feel happy when I look at them. So we're giving each one of these a quick coat, and notice I'm not doing the edges. That's on purpose because I'm going to try and copy that sign I saw, and I'm using my favorite color, black, to make everything look dirty and old and edged. I used to live in the forest where there was the 4 seasons, and I was always mad about that because I would paint every year and then everything looked literally like black. I mean, it's probably a super dark charcoal color, but black for crafts easily passes for that color, and it really makes the dirt look authentically, or the dirt look authentically dirty. It makes the wood look authentically dirty, just like it would be outside if you got snow and stuff. You just don't put it on too heavy. It's really, really softly dry brushed. And another really nice bonus of getting wood that's already cracked and, you know, what most people would consider trashy and they wouldn't want to use it for building, but it's perfect for farmhouse crafts, is because normally, you know, when you have those Dollar Tree signs or whatever and you're painting, you have to do that dry brushing with white over it to make it look like the paint's wearing off or it didn't settle down into the cracks because the wood's getting old and chippy. Look at that. You can see it does it. That looks like I painted white on top and I didn't. It just doesn't settle down into those deep cracks because the wood is very distressed. And that's the font I used. So if you want to go get that, it's free online, you guys. Just Google free farmhouse fonts. You've got lots to choose from. And I'm using carbon paper to transfer my letters. It's still one of my favorite ways to transfer. In fact, I've even considered coloring in my letters with the carbon paper there, and you certainly could do that, and that would mimic like an ink stamp from days gone by, which is a great look for vintage crafts. Now, my children did just treat me to an inkjet printer for her Christmas gift this last year, and so I'm currently doing some experiments with the inkjet printer to see if that's another option to transfer font on and get that beautiful ink where we want it. If you have a laser printer, I believe they use toners with lasers. There's always that trick with Mod Podge where you put it down in the Mod Podge and then you wet it, and you know, after it dries, you rub off the paper. That's also a great way to transfer letters that look like ink. And so in the upcoming crafts, I'm going to see if we can't show some other tricks besides carbon paper. But the carbon paper I'm using is from Amazon. It's 10 sheets. You can use each sheet 20 times. It was, I think, around $4. Great deal. The painter pen that I showed you is also from Amazon. It was around $3.75. I've used it about 15 times, and it's about... I got it in December 2019 and it's still super full, hasn't dried out, so I'm really pleased with that marker as well. Because this wood is so grooved, I don't know if the camera picks it up, but when I'm trying to put the paint down in those grooves, the tip of it is too thick and I can't get down into the grooves, so the paint already looks like it's distressed. And oh, there it is. You can see it. It's got streaks through it. So the whole thing looks like that in real life. It looks excellent and it's a major time saver. So when they give you that free wood, if you're looking at one that's really dry and brittle and you're thinking, oh no, it's terrible, that's the best kind. So just make sure you get everything. And there it is, garden seeds, flowers, and weeds. And I'm going to Mod Podge it because it's going to be outside. Now this one, even though I bring it in, I really love this, I guess, so I'm babying it a little bit. I don't really want it to fade or change or do anything. It's distressed to the level that I like and it looks really good, and I want to maintain it there as best as possible, so I'm going to put a layer of Mod Podge on. So a last minute change here, I grabbed some wire cutters, and drill some holes because I've got an idea for where these little guys will look the best. I'm so sorry I lost the beginning footage. All you see right there is me checking to see if the paint's dry. I just filmed myself painting these buckets. They were thrift finds. They were each $1.99. I got them half price on 50% off day, and so $1 each. And this bucket here has frogs on it. So my goal is to make those, camouflage them and make them disappear, because frogs are cute, but I'm not really wanting frogs for this particular decor piece. And I go ahead and take some sandpaper just to distress both of these little buckets. I was going to galvanize, but I just have a lot of galvanized stuff in my house right now, so I thought it's time for some farmhouse white. I know everybody says, I always see white, but for me, I don't actually have enough white, so we're going to do these buckets white. And this is my solution to the frog. I just actually take a hammer and I start pounding him. All the little shapes on the outside, on the inside. It actually works. I figure I've got a farmhouse themed home. Everything's rustic, so a dented bucket will totally go. It will go better than the frog. So I've got nothing to lose and everything to gain here. Anyway, it works brilliantly, and I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. And that lovely lady in the bathing suit and that nice man sitting by his Jaguar in 1946 is my mother and her father in England. So she's posing there in 1948 and he's posing in 1946. And you know what? This is a great craft, you guys. I was going to go online and look for a stranger, just an old vintage free download picture, and I suddenly thought, you know what, if you've got a family member or a photo of a mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, just someone that you love the photo. I always remembered this photo and how good my mom looked. It looked like a movie star, and it was perfect for this craft. You should use them. I didn't even, when I thought of it, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know why I didn't think of that sooner, because it's the way to enjoy my mom all the time, and I still have a home decor piece. So I don't know if you guys noticed, I used my fingers to rub the Mod Podge on, which is a great way to, because I really dented that bucket. I needed to make sure that the photo stuck down in all the little grooves. And it doesn't mess the finish up as long as you're doing it while the Mod Podge is still wet and you finish it off with a brush stroke. And here I am just taking the pewter gray from Apple Barrel Paint and going around the edge here to kind of, soften up the borders. I don't want those real harsh borders, and I didn't want to tear the photo either. And so I use my finger to rub it in and cloud it up and just generally age the photo and the entire bucket. I end up aging it all the way around on both. I never got to meet my granddad either. He actually passed away before I was born. He had emphysema, and when he went in for surgery, they accidentally gave him too much anesthesia. And it's funny, in those days, they just kind of went, oh dear, it was an awful accident. The doctor felt terrible. Everyone felt terrible. There were no lawsuits. Here it would be a lawsuit, or nowadays it would be a lawsuit, but everyone just kind of accepted, there was some risk when you went in those days. But I never got to meet him, so this little bucket's very, very special to me for that reason too. I get to enjoy these people. My mom's still with me, but I get to enjoy them every day now. And one of my lovely subscribers asked me whether I prefer Walmart flowers or Dollar Tree. I mean, look at the Walmart flowers, you guys. They're 47 cents more. They're fuller. They're more beautiful. I prefer those. I think it's a better deal for the money. You get more. Some of the Dollar Tree are nice, but here is the final craft. You guys, there she is. She's in my living room. So cute. And he's in the kitchen up in the farmhouse hutch near the washboard. Totally cute. And the washboard I have is actually a real washboard that she used in 1952 in Canada when they first immigrated out here. My parents. It's so cute. Anyways, I love this craft, and if you guys have some old pictures, I highly recommend you do it. It's a lot of fun. So I found two inspirations online. This one cost 120 smackaroos, and the other one, I don't know how much it costs, but I love both of these. However, there's something in them that I don't like, so I end up combining the two to make my own. You'll need 2 mop heads from wherever, a stick from outside, some Mod Podge, and some cardboard. Now, I have to cover my stick because I'm allergic to the tree that I'm using. It's liquid amber. If you have allergies and you're sensitive, I suggest you enclose your wood as well. And here I am measuring it because I'm going to be cutting out the cardboard in that shape. Now, I'm just showing you how easy it is to remove the mop threads. I love using natural sticks, but if you have allergies, oof. Here the mop thread comes apart in 4 separate strands. Now, for those of you that watched my previous Easter video, I explained that. The strands are fragile, but there's a lot in there, and of course I'm trying to make it stretch like most crafters are right now on YouTube because we can't go to the store. So I start wrapping it on the left there, and then I realize I need to do this part first because some of those yarn threads are going to cover the cardboard, which means I won't have to use as much of the yarn thread, which I wasn't sure I was going to have enough. I actually end up using a package and a half, so you'll have some left to do another craft. And of course you can get mops from anywhere. You don't have to get it from the Dollar Tree. It's just mine were from the Dollar Tree. And here I'm gluing, as you can see, first in the middle to get a nice center, and then I always go on either side because that helps me judge where I want the ones between that. So this is what it'll look like at that point, and you will start braiding loosely, and I want to emphasize loosely. Make those braids nice and loose because this is a faux macrame wall hanging. So part of the illusion, I guess, because I can't macrame. I know Marta can. Marta's amazing. She did a macrame video and it's awesome, and I'm gonna look at it soon and learn how to do that because I think it'd be fun. But I'm showing you a cheap, easy faux, very realistic, beautiful macrame wall hanging for Farmhouse boho right now. So you're going to braid all 5 of those. You're going to keep it nice and loose so the braids look nice and thick. In this video, I'm only doing 2 crafts this time because a lot of the boho crafts I did are actually very time consuming, and I don't think it's very honest to throw 3 or 4 crafts in there when I know that this one took me about 8 hours. You know, it's beautiful, lots of fun, but it's detailed, and I know for a fact there's going to be quite a few of you that are going to want to reproduce this, and I couldn't cut out any more than I did or shorten it any more than I did without it being too confusing for you and you wouldn't be able to duplicate it. Here you can see I'm just gluing those braids down to secure them to the cardboard, and I am working again from the outer edges, and then I go to the middle, and then again I can judge better where the 2 in between the middle and the outer edges go, because sometimes my measurements aren't perfect, and obviously you want it to be perfect and straight when it's hanging. The next step is to undo the braids up to the point where you glued on the edge of the cardboard there. And you're going to turn your macrame hanging over, I guess that's a word for it, macrame hanging, and you're going to use just one of those threads, the ones that you pull apart. There's 4, remember. You're going to use one, you're going to glue it on the back, then you're going to flip it back around, and you're going to start wrapping it. The purpose of this is to create a nice connection between, or break actually, between the braid and the threads that are going to hang down. In real macrame, you obviously would have, I don't know if the right word is knitting, because I'm not sure what they call the technique, but you would have done your little special loops, and that would have created that without actually ever cutting or breaking a thread. And here, you know, you're obviously creating an illusion of doing that. So you're going to wrap it around 4 times, and you're going to glue it in the back to secure it. And I'm just pointing out 4 times so you can see 4 different threads there. And you will continue to do the exact same thing to all 5 strands. You just saw me glue it in the front as well. So when necessary, you're going to have to use your judgment on that, but you might want to secure it in the front too if the threads aren't, for whatever reason, kind of hugging each other and staying really tight. I don't need to do that on every single strand, but I did need to do it on a couple, if you noticed that. And so go ahead and do that too. You're going to have to play it by ear. Remember, hot glue kind of seeps through things. So when you put a tiny dot at the top there, if you press it down, and don't press with your finger, I have a little spatula there. That spatula, someone actually asked me about that in the comments. That is from the Dollar Tree. It's in the makeup section. It's amazing. I grabbed it on a whim. It wasn't meant for crafting, and then I discovered the glue didn't stick to it, and I realized it was silicone. And it's better than those big craft spatulas that they sell because it's so small. It gives you a lot of control. You can see that when I'm working with it. I have a lot of control, like almost like a second finger. So, or maybe it would be an 11th finger, I guess, because I have 10 fingers. But you use, when you put that little glue underneath there, use something to press the string down, and then the glue kind of oozes and goes into all the threads. So you don't really need to put a lot. Don't be generous with it. You just need enough to secure the threads. And now, of course, you can see what I'm doing. I'm just taking those little threads. I'm going to go ahead and cover the entire cardboard up, and you are going to need to secure those little threads and kind of tuck them under the bigger braided strands when you get close to it, so that you ensure no cardboard is going to show, because that would ruin the beautiful illusion. And I'm slowing this down here too, so you can kind of see how I start by, there's my cat again. You can start by gluing it in the back, and most of my threads were glued in the back unless they ended in the front. Then I was forced to glue, and again, I wasn't overly heavy with the glue because I didn't want the glue to show through. Notice here how I use the spatula to shove the string really tight together under the braid almost. That's to, again, ensure that no cardboard shows. And I'm going to slow it down again here too, so you can see how I finish off the ends. I twirl it around, and then I guess it's kind of in a spiral shape. That would be a good explanation. I twirl it in a spiral shape around and around and around so that it covers the end of the cardboard. And here I'm just going to take this yarn and cover up the rest of the cardboard. Now this step is optional. You don't have to do this, and I wish I didn't, because I was running short on yarn string and I didn't think about it because I was kind of creating as I was going. I wasn't sure what my next step was going to be. I knew the look I wanted, but because the way that I end up gluing yarn on the back anyway, that would have been covered. But that's that extra detail work so that it looks good from the back as well. So you can do it if you want, but here, see how I'm going to start to lay down the yarn strings, and I'm going to cover that section up anyway. Now maybe for uniformity, so that that place it doesn't have like an indentation where the yarn might hang differently, it might be a good idea, especially because you have to, actually it is a good idea. If you buy 2 mop heads, you're going to have more than enough string. You should fill in those areas so that there is a nice level surface there. I did it, again, because I didn't know what I was doing. You should do it because you do know what you're doing, and it does create a nice even surface for the yarn to lay on. Also, when you finally get around to doing this, when we're allowed outside, you're going to have 2 mop heads, and so you can go ahead. It's safe to go strand by strand, but see how I suddenly get this brilliant idea because I'm worried I'm running out of yarn to lay it down ahead of time to make sure I have enough. If for whatever reason you are working with less than 1 mop head, maybe you're going to do another craft with a mop head, lay it down first and get it all situated before you start committing with hot glue. That is a much better idea. And look at that, you can glue all 3 down at one time and it goes much, much faster. So there's a great tip. And here I am, I'm just trimming the back from the little strands hanging over the edge to make it nice and neat. And here's something I needed to do, and I suggest you do this in the beginning. If you Mod Podge, the surface is slippery, put a little duct tape. It could be masking tape, it could be anything. Tape is great that way. When you put it on a surface and you hit it with hot glue, it actually kind of melts and molds in with the glue and whatever, it melts. So it helps almost like solder it together, and it helps things stick to shiny surfaces that would otherwise not stick. Now, I've used masking tape in the past. That works just as good, but I wanted to use the duct tape because it was black. So here I am, I'm laying some cardboard down, taking out those short threads that are part of that braided part that I showed you at the beginning, and measuring it because I want to cut those at a nice V angle. I don't know if you just saw the lint fly behind the camera. These are very linty. There's a lot of fluff and stuff when you're working with the mop heads, so Just so you're aware of that, don't wear black. I recommend that. So now those 5 strands are forming a nice V formation. I took some foam board, I cut it in 5.5. Length is the only thing that's important here. It's the length of tassels. It doesn't matter how wide it is, and you can certainly use cardboard. You don't have to use foam board. And I go around about 30 times. I made the tassels too chunky at first. In fact, this is the chunky one. When I finish, when I figure it out and I make the rest of the tassels, I only make them going around 30 times. I went around 60 times, and they're too thick and they overpower the macrame wall hanging, I guess. Just use 30, wrap it around. Oh, more incoming with the lint. And there's your beautiful tassel. So only 30 times, you're good to go. Here's the colors you can pick. I'm going for a gray blue. I didn't have the right color in my craft supplies, so I have to kind of add a little bit and make it and mix it. And those are the colors I use to get it. I only have like a baby blue, and I didn't want, you know, the energy to be a boys' nursery, so I had, and the color that ends up being, you know, the sweet spot is mostly black. So that pulls up a really beautiful blue-gray. In fact, my whole entire boho theme for the next 3 videos is going to be this nice gray blue with a natural earthy sand, like light mocha color, and black and white and gray. Real earthy colors, really nice. Love them. So I'm taking out those 5 strands again, and I'm putting wax paper underneath them because I'm getting ready to dye them. And that blue paint that I just mixed up is watered down with quite a bit of water. So I'm just sponging it on to get the color. You're just tapping on the paint, and you are doing the front and back. So I do flip those over and do the underside as well, because you never know when they dry how they're going to hang or how they're going to kind of move with breezes or people walking by, air currents. And there's some free wood. It's palette wood. That's ink on there, by the way. And if you don't know how to get free wood for crafting, you can always check out my first video. Don't go in person though. Just call them and ask if they can leave the wood they're going to throw away outside. So here I'm making a tassel, and I think that wood measures about 6.5 inches. So I'm just looping it around and around, and then I just put it on the edge of the wood there. You can see what I'm doing. And I tie it, and then really important, I put a little bit of glue to secure it so it doesn't fall off. And now I'm going to wrap that thread around and around and use this opportunity. It's a great opportunity anytime you make any kind of tassel to tighten it up. So when you wrap it around and around, try to get it to go higher towards the top or pull, but it's a great, like I said, great opportunity to tighten it up. And I'm just trimming them to make them even. And I'm using the same color that I used for the first set of tassels and the front strings as well. When you water it down a little bit, goes a long way. And now I'm using granite gray. Now it turns out granite gray is a really pretty nice baby blue that doesn't look like a boy's nursery. This works out really well because when the paint dries, it leaves a little bit of a harsher line than I want, and I'm aiming for that ombre effect or tie-dye effect where there's this gradual darkening to lightening. So that's the color I use. And here, this is the illusion of the tassel. I actually have all of my tassels on markers to keep them open, that hole open, and then I take them off, squirt a little bit of glue in there, and use some tweezers to push in the ends of each of those 3 mop strings left from the braid. And then, as you can see, I put a little bit of glue for the middle one, and I glue that on the back, and that all holds the tassels beautifully. They hang beautifully. I'm using some twine to make a hanger at the top, but honestly, if I felt confident about having enough yarn, either in the mop head or in the white yarn, I would have preferred to use that. But, you know, I'm making do with what I have right now. And for those of you that watched how to make free wooden beads, one of my other videos, also down in the description box, you'll remember this little wooden trinket I made, the crescent moon. I decided this is perfect for my boho craft, and I paint it white and edge it with that light gray. You're going to need a small bottle, some small craft sticks, and a dowel. I'm using some masking tape to stick on the bottle to make the surface a little bit more adhesive for hot glue. But if you have a bottle that already has an adhesive surface, you can skip the tape altogether. And I'm just cutting these craft sticks right where they begin to curve. And now that they're all cut, I'm going to start applying strips of hot glue on the bottom to attach it to the bottle, and I'm going to attach all of them around the bottle. And there's a nice little trick I left in this video on purpose, and I can't remember which YouTuber gave me that trick, but she said in her video that she got it from one of the comments. So I try to give credit, but I'm not sure who gave it originally. But if you put a little hot glue on the end of your stick, your new glue stick, before you put it into your glue gun, it doesn't fall out that way. It's a great tip. I can't take credit for it, but I did want to pass it on. So there you see me glue all of the little craft sticks around the bottle, and I took a chance and hoped that they all fit on there. It was a little bit of a tight squeeze at the end. You might want to measure ahead of time, but that's just how I craft. I kind of make it up as I go. So we're making a little antique butter churn. I saw one on eBay and I'm copying it by making a miniature version. It needs a little lid, so I'm just using some cardboard for that. My bottle sits a little too low, and I decide to go ahead, roll up some cardboard, cut it out, and glue it in a ring, and then put it down on the inside, and that will hold our lid up higher. And of course, the lid has to be covered with wood too, because we want this to look very authentic. So you don't have to be really picky about the sizes of wood here. As you can see, I have some really long, some really short. You just want to make sure you cover all of the cardboard. And now I'm just taking my little clippers and I'm trimming it around to make a perfect circle. Testing it for size, make sure that it goes in there nice and easy. Cutting the dowel, and also going to test it for size to make sure that it's not too long or too short before I commit and glue it down. And this is a Dollar Tree cookie tray, those disposable foil cookie trays. They are great for farmhouse crafts, so always try to pick some of those up. And I don't want all the bumps in there. Easy way to get rid of all the little bumps is just take the end of my scissors like you saw me do, and you just rub it down until everything's really flat. You can use whatever hard thing you have to rub it down. It doesn't have to be scissors, but it works brilliantly to get the bumps out. So now we have those nice little metal straps for our butter churn. Real antique butter churns have these metal straps. I guess it helped hold it together. And I'm just going to take some, it's called Golden Sunset from Apple Barrel. It looks yellow, but it's actually, well, it is yellow, but it's more gold in real life. And you know how some real wood, especially antique wood, has that yellow undertone to it? The butter churn that I saw has a yellow, almost orangey yellow, I guess, undertone, but I didn't quite like the orange look because I figured, you know, once I put the burnt umber on, it'll be orangey enough. So this is watered down burnt umber, and I'm just going to put that over the yellow for a stain. And here I am using my favorite color, black. For those of you that watch my channel, you know that I love black for distressing and making things look really old and antiqued and weathered up here like it's spent a lot of time outside. I have tried other colors, but I still just have the best luck with black, and I end up dry brushing black all over this little butter churn. There I go. And we're going to be doing the same thing to the metal straps. I'm going to start with black by Apple Barrel, but you can use any black. Then pewter gray from Apple Barrel. Again, you can use any gray. And burnt umber, just to give it a little bit of the rusted look, and just trying to make them it's not galvanized, but I'm trying to make the metal look like what I saw on eBay, where it just looks really oxidized and old. And I just used hot glue for this part to glue the two bands together, and it worked just fine. You can use a stronger industrial strength glue if you need to, but you don't have to. And here it is, you guys. It is so cute. This is one of my favorites. I was smiling from ear to ear when I finished this. Perfect solution for a narrow 3-tier tray dilemma, and I really hope you guys get to try it. It was super fun to make, super cute. You're going to need a pattern of a cutting board, a picture of your choosing, and 3 pieces of cardboard, and some spackling paste or joint compound. Now, you can get the spackling at the Dollar Tree. I ordered mine in bulk, but the Dollar Tree one works just fine. And you're going to go ahead and cut out the pattern there. Now, I will have this pattern in my description box as a free printable. Just click on that link and it will take you there, and you can print up the one that I used. But you're just going to trace it, cut it out, 3 of them, glue them all together like you can see me doing here, because obviously a cutting board has to be a decent thickness. It's not going to be wafer thin, so we're going to start with that. You glue it together nice and tight. And now I'm pretty good at cutting stuff. For you guys that watch my videos, you see me use my circular saw. I got a whole bunch of power tools, and so I'm getting better. But even with my new skills, I am not up to cutting a small cutting board. So I made this out of cardboard to make it very user-friendly so everyone can do this craft. And here I'm just taking some sharp tweezers and I'm poking a hole through the middle. And then I'm just going to cover it with some spackling. You can use the Dollar Tree spackling. It works really well. This is just what I had on hand. And I just use a spare piece of cardboard to spread my spackling. And I'm going to dry it just a little bit, just till it's kind of tacky. And then I dip my finger in some water and smooth the edges. And this will save you at the end when you go to sand. You won't have to sand so much. Now, it is dry enough where I can gently hold it without leaving any indentations, and that allows me to finish the handle of my little cutting board. So here, while it's still wet, I'm taking an old stick from a paintbrush that fell off. I actually use this tool a lot, you guys. Hold on to everything. You never know when you're going to need it. Poking the hole through it. Now, this is the next day. The next day I sand, and I just sand really lightly and fast to round out all of the edges and to get rid of any bumps or lumps or too many little grooves. I mean, you're just perfecting it so that it looks like a wooden board, because the next thing you're going to do is stain it. So we're going to be using a stain that in previous videos I was totally lukewarm about, and I take it back. I'll tell you, I grabbed this on a whim because I thought, yeah, I want to stain this cutting board. Yeah, let's slap the stain on it. If it doesn't work, we'll just do it all over again. Because that's who I am. I'm very impulsive when I craft. I discovered a lot of neat things that way. Turns out this product on a smooth surface, and this is kind of a matte surface, even though it's, it's smooth, it's matte. There it is, I'm showing you. It produces the most beautiful faux wood grain in one step, you guys. I was shocked. So now I am hot for this stuff. It's a water-based acrylic, so you can wash it up and clean it up really easy. It's not a wax. Wax does the same trick, you guys, so if you have wax, do that. But I'm guessing you could paint over this because it's water-based acrylic, which means you could change your DIYs up back and forth. You could make it white paint, then wood, then white paint, then wood. You could go back and forth. Lots of possibilities there. So, and it was super slippery. It went a long way. A little bit goes a long way. So if you're interested, I'm not sponsored by anybody. The link is below in my description box. This is a photo from my friend's house that I miniaturized, and I'm just Mod Podging it on top of my little cutting board. And here it is, absolutely beautiful. I go in really close here so that you can see how gorgeous that wood grain is. And even the little nicks that when you don't sand it out, look at it, it just looks like little knife marks, like a real cutting board. This is my second favorite craft. Absolutely love it. Hope you guys get to do it. Perfect for a 3-tier tray. So here you're going to need more of the little Dollar Tree foil cookie sheets, and I'm showing you now in more detail how you rub out those bumps. Now if you have a little bumps left behind for this craft, it's fine, it will look good, but that's all you need to do. And then you need either poster board or cardstock, just something kind of thicker so it doesn't bend. Cut out the little shape of a blade. We're going to be making a little miniature windmill here. Now it's also called a sail. Those are called windmill sails or windmill blades. I think that's so cute. So I'm going to call it a blade today. And these little cookie trays are actually doubled up here. So for every single blade that I cut out, I'm going to get 2. And you will need a total of 8 double-sided blades. You will also need a wine cork and some toothpicks later, but you're going to be cutting out 3 cork slices all together. 2 are going to be the same size, and your third piece should be half as big as the other 2 pieces. And you're going to need 8 toothpicks. Cut them off to whatever size you want, depending on how long you want your windmill blades to be. Just be careful not to cut off the pokey side, because that is don't cut it at both sides, because you'll need one side to have that sharp end so that you can poke it into the wine cork. Now I just used a little bit of hot glue here. It worked just fine, a thin strip, but really important, don't forget to do this part. Lay it side by side and make sure that all of them match up and line up evenly so that you don't have an uneven circle for your windmill. When you're done doing that, go ahead and glue your second top piece of foil on top, and as the glue is drying, not when it's really hot, but when it gets cool enough to touch, pinch those sides together so that you seal them up nice and tight. And this is what they'll look like when you're all done. And if there's any little overlap where some of the foil is not, you didn't glue it down completely evenly, and so you have a little edge from the back foil or front foil hanging over, just trim that afterwards, it's just fine. You're going to need 4 skewer sticks. Mine are from the Dollar Tree. Now do cut off the pokey ends on those, because the factory cut flat ends are going to be better for legs at the bottom. They'll look more, store-bought. And take the larger cork slice and glue the 2 legs down like you see me doing here, and then take the thinner cork slice and glue that on top of that. Next, you're going to glue what will be the back of your windmill on top of the thinner slice, and as it's drying, make sure you hold your legs out at an angle, because it's going to need to stand on its own. I'm going to stand it up in a minute so that you have that view and you can see exactly what you're going for. Now I did end up cutting another thin piece to put on top of the back there so that you can't see where they're glued together, and you can do that too. And you take the second thicker slice and you're going to be stabbing in your little windmill blades just like you see me doing there, so that you have your little windmill. I'm using some watered down burnt umber by Apple Barrel Paint to stain it, but you can use any color brown, it's no big deal. And I'm staining the corks. You don't have to. This is going to be your baby if you make it, so you guys always do your crafts the way that makes your heart content. But I went ahead and stained the corks brown. I thought it came out really nice, and I even stained the little toothpicks. And then I'm taking some of the pewter gray in Apple Barrel, and I'm just dabbing it on with a sponge to make the blades look nice and old and antiqued. And I'm going to edge them with the burnt umber as well. So I'm totally in love with this guy, and I'm using E6000 to make sure that it stays together with a little dot of hot glue. I've got my window open, a fan going, holding my breath, you guys. It's all good. If you want to just use hot glue, it's okay, or another strong adhesive, but I am thrilled with how this windmill came out. It is so cute. Today we're crafting with one of my favorite things to craft with, cinnamon sticks. I absolutely love these. They have a natural rustic look to them that is perfect for home decor. They're easy to cut and easy to work with, and you get two for the price of one. You get a beautiful piece of home decor, and you also get a natural air freshener. They've done a lot of studies on cinnamon, you guys, and it has so many health benefits. So it's a good natural thing to be breathing in your home, and perfect for fall coming up. For this craft, you're going to need 3 of the towering blocks from the Dollar Tree and some cinnamon sticks. You can pick those up at Dollar Tree, but I think they tend to be kind of seasonal, but you can get them super cheap at grocery stores as well. And if you live by a Dollar General or a 99-cent store, they're also usually there all year round. So you're going to glue it together as you see me doing here. I've cut 4 short pieces and 2 longer pieces because today, folks, we're making a little mini farmhouse chair. Now, I did use wood glue for my towering blocks because raw wood, the best glue you can use for it is wood glue. If you don't have that, there's some other good glues out there, but I don't recommend the E6000. I haven't had good luck with it. It tends to soak into the wood, but I've seen people use super glue, and I've seen them use Loctite. And somebody in my comments mentioned that the Gorilla Glue is really, really wonderful for wood too. So I just wanted to pass that on. And you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just cutting everything down to size and then gluing it together using hot glue. And it turns out that hot glue works really, really well on cinnamon sticks. It's stuck and it's still staying, and it's staying really well. So you can use just hot glue. And here I'm just using watered down burnt umber by Apple Barrel to darken up the seat a little bit and get it to match the cinnamon sticks. So to cover that hot glue so that the craft looks expensive, I'm using my favorite black, and I'm just taking a little tiny petite brush. Everything's petite in this video. And I'm just painting over the hot glue where it meets at the seam to give it a distressed look, but also that's where chairs naturally get dirty as they get, when they're really old, they always get dirty at the seams there, because that's where I guess people can't really wipe the dust off when we clean. So it gathers in there and it stains everything and ends up looking really good, and it works perfect to cover the hot glue. Now this next DIY is definitely a trash to treasure. I'm using those 2 containers that somehow came home from restaurants and to-go boxes when my kids would eat out, and a prescription bottle, but any bottle will do. I think I had something to do with heartburn in this one. And I am using E6000 and hot glue because I do need a really strong hold for this. It's those 2 little plastic mini bowls or whatever they are actually quite heavy, so I need strong adhesive, and I bet you can guess what we're going to make. And if you guessed a milk can, you are right. And here I am showing you another option in case some of you want to take it down a notch and really go small and miniature. This is an antihistamine bottle and the cough medicine plastic cups that come on top of like cough syrups, but I'm showing you, you will have to cut 2 of them in half and then glue them together, and it would have to be cut really nice and neat and straight, or you'd be able to tell. But if you want to go really, really small, fill that container up with some rocks, and you can make it really super tiny for these 3-tiered trays. So here's the Dollar Tree cookie tray or baking pan out of foil that they have, great for farmhouse decor. And I'm just cutting it and folding it. I am doubling it up to make it extra thick and bulky because these are going to be the handles for my milk can. I do continue to need strong adhesive, so I do a mix of E6000 and hot glue to get these on the bottle. And then I go around the bottom rim and just secure it with more hot glue, take it outside, and I'm spraying it with that wonderful color aluminum from Krylon. And of course, I'm going to start the process now of making this metal look old and oxidized. I'm not really going for a galvanized look. I'm just going again for something that looks like it's been around for a long time outside on a farm and it's gotten oxidized from the weather. The 3 colors that I'm using is the pewter gray from Apple Barrel Paint, black, and an iridescent silver. And I'm just taking a combination of a paintbrush that is older and kind of spread out. Those work really good for making things look oxidized and or galvanized. And a Kleenex, I'm blotting it here, or a paper towel, and a sponge. And I'm just working on it until I kind of get the look that I want. I'm starting off with the pewter gray first, then I do some black, then I go back over the pewter gray, and I'm just layering it now with the iridescent silver all over, just covering the whole thing until I get a look that I'm happy with. If you want a really detailed tutorial on how to do aged metal, I go really into that in my video called Farmhouse Seriously Free DIYs. It's the first one in the series. Look for the little thumbnail that has a water can on it. That's the one where I go into it. But I'm doing something similar here. I'm just doing, on a smaller scale. And lastly, I am going to use a little bit of burnt umber to put some faux rust around this, just to make it look, older and more distressed. And I also have these little mini pearls. There they are, the adhesive pearl wrap from the Dollar Tree. They also sell pearl buttons Whenever you guys see this at the Dollar Tree, please make sure you pick them up if you love doing faux metal like this, like milk cans or any other kind of farmhouse stuff, because they're so easy to apply and they add so much realism to faux metal. They imitate the little bolts. I think that's what they use to solder the metal together, and they work great. I end up wanting words on this little milk can, and I choose Local and Fresh. Now, I did make and design this myself, and there's a free printable down in my description box. I forgot to mention I also have a free printable for the little mini books as well, so if you guys want to just download exactly what I did, you can. I try to do that whenever I can or whenever I design it so that you guys can duplicate it if you want to. And if you don't know where that description box is, I give a detailed explanation and instructions on the first part of this series. So check out the first video and you'll find out how to find your description box. And thank you to those that thanked me for doing that as well. I'm really excited about this next craft. I was going to throw away that empty ribbon spool, and it occurred to me that is an excellent shape for farmhouse decor, and I'm sure you guys can probably guess what we're going to be making here. We're going to be making a wooden spool. That's right, those little old-fashioned wooden spools. Oh my gosh, I was so excited about this idea. So I took some foam board, I put it down, I traced either end, and I'm just cutting out the circles now. You can use cardboard if you want, that's just fine, but you're going to need 2 circles. And then I'm going to glue them on either side because we need it to be a little bit thicker than just thin cardboard, which is, you know, the normal thing that's on the end of the spool. And now some spackling. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just taking a little scrap piece of cardboard and I'm painting, or spreading I guess, the top on either side and around the sides to cover where the foam board meets the little thin cardboard, or if you use cardboard, where the cardboard meets the cardboard. But you just want it to look nice and thick on the edge so it looks like a big thick piece of wood. And here's a apple barrel paint bottle, and I just balance it on there so it dries overnight. That was a great little trick because both sides are wet. And you're just going to lightly sand it down with some sandpaper just so that it doesn't have any weird, you might see it there, I can see it, but I'm looking for it. But there's sometimes like little jagged edges that are a bit more jagged than what natural wood would be, and you just want to smooth those areas down. And I'm using jute twine to get a measurement. So I just keep testing and testing until I get a nice measurement for the middle, because I'm going to be using that twine for the measurement to cut down the small craft sticks. Now these craft sticks are from Dollar Tree. You can use any craft sticks you want. Stick with the small ones though, because if you try to go bigger, you can't go around the turn there on the circle in the center, because we're going to be gluing these craft sticks all the way around the middle part. And just like that. You're looking for it to fit just like a tight little squeeze, just like that. Using hot glue for this craft, you just glue the sticks all the way around. Hot glue worked really, really well. You don't need any other kind of glue. They really stuck really well. I don't know why. Sometimes hot glue, you know, doesn't stick to wood, but for this particular craft with the cardboard, it worked great. So here I'm using the stain that I used to just kind of be lukewarm about, and then I'm totally in love with now. That's from Amazon. The link for that is below in my description box. And if you don't know where a description box is on YouTube, I give a detailed explanation on how to find that in part 1 of this series. But here I am staining the craft sticks, and of course they look great, you guys, because they are wood. But as we know, if you watch part 1 anyway, this stain looks amazing on spackling. So the 2 parts match perfectly and they end up looking awesome. And when it's all done, I end up using khaki from Apple Barrel just to distress it a little bit and make it look old, because it's a little too new looking and streaky, and I just, it needs to have all those different dimensions, like it looks like it's worn off and old, because we want this to look antique. And it ends up working really, really well. I love khaki for that. This craft, you're going to need 6 towering blocks from the Dollar Tree, 1 medium craft stick, and if you don't have a little piece of ruler that you can cut, or I'm using lath, L-A-T-H, you get 8 feet for over $1 at Lowe's or Home Depot. It's a great deal. But if you don't have that for that little piece of wood you see right there that I'm going to glue that sign on, just use 2 more of the towering blocks. That would be fine. And the sign will also be down in my description box as a free printable. And if you haven't guessed what we're going to make, we're making, of course, a washboard. What would Farmhouse Decor be without the washboard? You gotta have the washboard. So I'm just cutting out the sign here. I'm going to go ahead and glue it down on, that would be your 2 wooden blocks if you do the towering blocks. I use Tight Bond wood glue, which I love. Someone actually told me there's wood grain in the wood glue. They came on last week and said that. And that's what makes it work so good. But shout out to Tara, because last week I mentioned Gorilla Glue and I forgot to say clear. So it was clear that she swears by. And here is a graph that goes over the best wood glues. I thought that was really helpful. It rates them. And if you want to pause the video, that gives you a lot of information if you work a lot with wood and you need to glue it together. Here I am gluing the 3 blocks together, and I'm going to use spackling to try and hide the seams the best I can so we can't see them. And here's some leftover faux galvanized metal made out of poster board. It was black poster board. I sprayed it with the Krylon in color aluminum and blotted it off with a paper towel. And then I also added some dark gray little amoeba shapes there when I came inside with a sponge. And it's going to be perfect for this craft. I had a little piece left and I was saving it for this because I thought it would be perfect. And I measured just approximately the width of my washboard, and now I'm folding it in an accordion shape because this is going to be the metal part that we scrub our clothes on. None of us use washboards probably, I don't know, but if we were using a washboard, that's what this part's going to be. I forgot to mention you're going to need a little dowel from the Dollar Tree. I mean, I guess you could substitute a toothpick or something smaller, but I wanted something at the bottom area there. We kind of have to have like a little wood thing at the bottom of there, and I'm using one of the dowels from the Dollar Tree. And here I am, I'm just sanding the spackling. I'm sure you can see what I'm doing, but just to make it as smooth as I can. And we're going to give this a coat of acrylic white paint. I actually did not use chalk paint here. I just used regular old acrylic white paint because I wanted some of the wood to show through on purpose, because I'm going to be leaving some of the raw wood behind. It's going to be kind of a mix of, white with wood peeking through, and then some untouched wood as well, because I thought that looked more rustic and cute. I just didn't want a solid white one. And I'm going to do the back as well, because I've mentioned I have a tier tray that needs you know, it's 360 degrees around on the corner of my counter, so everything has to be good on both the front and the back because you can see it from all directions. And so here I'm gluing the top part onto the bottom part of the craft medium stick that I glued at the bottom, and it's coming together. Look at that, isn't that cute? And then I'm going to go ahead and glue on the sides with the mix of E6000 and hot glue. Now this is painted wood, so E6000 works great with painted wood. It's just raw wood it tends to soak into, but I have really good luck when I use it with painted wood for sure. And I'm just gluing these two together. For this part, I'm just using hot glue, and it holds, and I was really glad because I wasn't sure that it would. So there's not a lot of pressure on it. It's not very heavy, so feel free just to, you know, keep it nice and light at the bottom there. And you're definitely going to want to put a thin strip of hot glue on the back just to secure this extra, because otherwise it wobbles around. Just using one of my favorites, burnt umber, to age in distress around the sign a little bit. One quick coat of Mod Podge and we are good to go. You're going to need a cylinder-shaped item. Any cylinder shape will work. I'm just showing you some examples here. They sell these at the Dollar Tree. And the next one coming up, the Quaker Oats. If you're in the mood to make a big piece of birch wood, you could use that. Even the glasses next to it that it shows with the oatmeal in it would work. Anything that's a cylinder shape. Today I'm using a tin can and some masking tape. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is taking the masking tape and wrapping it around my tin can. And this is probably one of the few times in life you can be as sloppy as you want with the tape and not worry about it. In fact, the aim is to be a little bit sloppy here. Just make sure that you're getting it right up to the edge of the can on the bottom and the top, or whatever you choose to use as a cylinder shape. So we're actually creating the bark of the wood. And I'm moving kind of quick and rough, not worrying about it wrinkling up, just pressing those wrinkles down as I go. And I'm going at an angle just to cover the entire can. And you want to get rid of all the little bumps, because the cans have the little bumps on them, those little, I don't know what they're called, those little, I don't know, lines, I guess, ridges maybe, that go around the can, and you can see me smoothing it there. And I end up putting about 3 layers on the bottom and the top, so that it kind of makes it, you know, the middle pops out a little bit. So you're trying to make the surface as even as you can so that it doesn't have any indentations. And I'm showing you up close all those crazy lines. They almost look like veins going through it. And you just keep applying the tape. See how on the right side it's a little more transparent? You can see the can through. I'm going to add some more tape there and make sure that everything's covered and uniform in color and pretty level, so when you lay the can down on its side, the sides are pretty even around. You can see here that's what I'm attempting to do. That's why I put more layers on the top and the bottom, because we have that chunky middle. And of course, real wood isn't perfect, so don't stress about this. Just do your best. And now you're going to want to take the back end of your scissors, or just something hard like that, and rub down those lines so that they're as flat as possible. Then you go ahead and you apply a coat of white paint, and you can be sloppy with this. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can see I'm using an old brush and just putting it on there. The important thing in between each layer that we're going to do is that you dry it. So that's why I show you the blow dryer, to remind you to make sure that it is very dry before you start the next part. Next, you're going to be using a sharp little utility knife or an X-Acto knife or a craft knife like you see me doing here, and you're just going to randomly pick different little veins to shave down. So you're looking for the ones that stick out too much. You know how the tape might bunch up and form almost like a flap there? You don't want a flap. So just turn it sideways, go over it, and you're also going to see me point it downwards with the tip of it and kind of scrape into the little vein thing. So you'll see it right here, and I'm scraping it away to make it flatter, but it also tears the tape open a little bit, and it makes it have that messy look like birch wood has. If you ever see birch wood in real life, the bark is usually kind of thrashed and torn. It's not perfect. So this gives it more authenticity and texture, and it just adds to the whole look. So, and you don't, again, have to do every single one. Just sporadically pick some here and there wherever you think it looks nice. All of today's paints in this video are by Apple Barrel, and the first color we're going to be using is Territorial Beige. You're just dry brushing. That's the only technique we're going to be using in this video, is dry brushing. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it just means use a small, tiny amount of paint on the tip of your brush and paint it really softly across your surface so that you get a look like what you see here. Now the important thing is that you're going to dry in between each step, so that's why I showed you the blow dryer. The next color is Pewter Gray. Same technique. We're going to be dry brushing it really softly all the way around the entire can. The third color is White, and we're going to be dry brushing white across this to blend out and mute the colors softly and create a veil effect over them so that they look really kind of blurry and softened. And you don't have to hit every single area with the same amount of white paint. So some areas will have a little more, some areas will have a little less. That gives it nice dimension and makes it look more realistic. The fourth color we're going to be using is Burnt Umber. Now this color is applied super feather light so that you're only hitting the raised surfaces, like the little veins on the wood here, and that is covered again with some white to mute and soften that up. That's the last final step. Now to make the faux knots on the wood. Now this is super simple. You just dip your finger in some of that pewter gray and blob on some gray little spots wherever you'd like them to be, and then take the burnt umber and draw a frame on them like an eyeball. You're essentially making an eyeball. You can see it right there. They are that simple to make. And lastly, you're going to be taking the color Antique Parchment and going over those little knots to create a little nice softening veil on them as well. Now the reason we're using the Antique Parchment is because at this point the white has so many layers of paint on that it's no longer white. It resembles more of a cream color, so you can't really use white anymore, or it would be too bright and too much of a contrast. And lastly, you're just going to take a regular old pencil and start drawing those little lines all over the birch wood. Just cover the whole can with them, and that's it. And there you have it. Doesn't it look awesome? I love this craft. The next step I like to do is finish off the top with a bit of twine for a little rustic touch, but you certainly can skip this step. You can also add layers of foam board on the top and make it taller as long as you take the tape up the top as well and cover the sides of the foam board. You can change the height of these cans to make them less recognizable as a can. And the really neat thing about this craft that I love is you don't have to, make just birch wood. This technique would work for any kind of wood, depending on what colors of paint you choose. So if you want to make a cute little Yule log craft, or just put some fake wood in a faux fireplace, it's really sky's the limit with this craft, which is why I thought it was so much fun, and it is a fantastic way to recycle cans. Now, I like to leave one end open because I actually flip these and use them for super pretty vases, and boy do they make absolutely stunning vases for flowers. Now I wanted this size for a craft I'm doing in my upcoming video. I didn't worry about it looking like a can because when it goes together with the whole craft, it definitely is not recognizable as a can. If you had fun watching this video today and enjoyed it, please give me a big thumbs up. It really does help YouTube notice my channel and helps my channel grow. And of course, as always, you guys, until the next video, breathe deep, fret not, and do things that make you happy.